Ancient Feelings of Peace. Welcome to my podcast. The intent of this podcast is to extend love and learn love by teaching only love. To get started, I thought it would be good to give you a little backstory about how I came to know the love of God, and through my explanation, perhaps you will get an answer to the question, why listen to me? Something happened that I cannot explain perfectly because it is beyond words. If I could, I would touch your hand and my experience would flow from me to you, and you would suddenly remember, like I did, what Jesus tried to explain while he was here on earth talking to his followers. It's a feeling wrapped in a memory, and beyond that it is nearly impossible to describe. Perhaps that's why we struggle with it even today. The most startling thing about the experience of heaven is that you will remember it. My own experience was one of an ancient feeling of peace. The feeling was comfortable, trustworthy, and my awareness was completely void of judgment until my ego noticed I was no longer me, separate from you, and then went looking for a word for the wordless. The word that came to me was joy, but when I say that now, the word joy is meaningless out of context. Yet that is the word that can best describe what God love offered as a gift. To Carl Jung and others, the ego represents that part of our consciousness that comprises thoughts, memories, emotions, and generally our so-called awareness. Except after my experiences in heaven, I would say the ego doesn't represent awareness. This is because while I was experiencing God love or heaven, I was aware, but I had no memories of the ego life, no connection to Mark as a person or an individual, no thoughts outside of one being, and no emotions other than joy, love, perfection. By the way, I hyphenated that as a single word. But again, what I experienced is wordless and beyond ego understanding. The message wrapped in that remembrance is simply this: you are as God created you, and nothing you did as an ego can change that truth. God holds you as an idea, and no matter how hard you try to change God's mind, God is not moved to alter its creation or believe in you outside of God love. To put it another way, God love created you as God love and has not changed its mind about what was created all those millennia ago. We have tried to change our minds about who we are. We have succeeded in confusing ourselves, but we have not succeeded in changing anything in reality. From those experiences of heaven, my mind was opened, and I want to share with you some of what I learned about you and about myself. I love you because of those experiences. I love you unconditionally and without reserve. My love for you is genuine. You might wonder how I can say that without knowing you personally, as a separate being. What I can tell you is that I have seen the real you in truth, without your masks to cover you up, beyond the shadows of darkness you hide behind. Because God has shared its love with me directly, I overlook the insanity that our egos project out onto the world. That doesn't mean I don't see the insanity all around us, but it does mean I no longer believe in it. I also realize now that I cannot change the ego because the ego doesn't exist in reality. There is no changing this world. God love shared with me the understanding the only thing any of us can do is change our minds about what we see here and let it drift off like a storm cloud over the prairie. I love you unconditionally simply because I know you as God knows you. Perhaps you think you've never been loved unconditionally before, and if you think that, that's okay. I once thought that too. I thought for a long time, in many lives, on thousands of planets, in many forms, that I was not lovable or worthy of love. But you, like me, have always been loved because God has always loved you the same way I love you now. If you could see yourself the way God sees you, the way that Jesus sees you, and the way that I see you, you would simply be happy. And by happy, I don't mean happy like when it's your birthday or when you win a prize, but happy like when God whispers in your ear that you are loved and kisses you on the forehead. None of this means that I haven't awakened in a way that I'm special. The world still interrupts me from time to time. I still worry about money. When my dog died a few years ago, I still cried. I still miss my grandparents, my father, and many others who have set their bodies aside and are no longer wandering around in this dream. But what has changed is, I now know this is all temporary, and none of it is real. I sometimes forget that I am loved unconditionally and decide to act like I'm hated. Then I start to remember, and over time the memory crests until I get the God love experience, and it lingers a little while, and then it drifts off again. Over time, I've come to realize that if we want to hang on to our ego, what we call our personality, we can't hold on to God's gift of true love. We can't have it both ways. So, when I start to forget that I'm loved unconditionally, my ego swells up like an ocean of despair, and I slip back down the side of a wave until I bottom out, start my way back up the next wave, like a small bottle in a vast sea, bobbing up and down. And every so often, I get a glimpse of heaven. But because I still think I'm a small bottle, I don't stay in heaven. God love is outside of time. While we are dreaming of time, with a past that drags us down and a future that makes us worry, the present cannot hold our awareness very long, and the love of God is but a holy blessing in a tiny instant that stops time. It is in the now. God love is not so much a memory as it is a remembrance. It feels a little like a memory, but that's not at all what it feels like, not even in the least. An awakening is probably more like it, as in the moment of being suddenly aware of God. A warm wave of God love in all its perfection flows over our awareness, and because we're committed to a body or an ego, the God love wave recedes. Memories come to us in waves. Lives come to us in waves too. This is true of people, in storms, money, laughter, sadness, anger, and consciousness. And so my experience is shared in waves. Each wave is a time, place, and set of circumstances that lead me either up a crest or down to a pit. With each wave, I get closer and closer to changing my mind about being a bottle or a person or an ego. Each time I know just a little better what unconditional love means and how it applies to all of us. I am not perfect in this life, nor have I been perfect in any previous life, and I don't claim to be better or smarter or more gifted than anyone else. In spirit I am perfect, however, and so are you. But here in a body, we are prone to disguise our perfection in ways that will confuse ourselves and keep us from the truth about who we are. As you listen to these podcasts, remember that I love you unconditionally. While I may say things that upset you or that you may be in conflict with, I absolutely mean no harm to you or anyone else. I honor you wherever you are in your spiritual journey. My only hope is that perhaps we can walk together for a while and experience God love with each other. Also, I may at times approach thoughts about the God of the ego and some of my experiences and thoughts about God that is described in the Bible. It is important that you understand I am speaking from my own experiences and mean no disrespect to your point of view, whatever that may be. Something else you should know about me before we take this short journey together. I no longer believe in God. There was a time when I did, but after my strongest of experiences, I can honestly say where there was once belief, there is now knowledge. The difference between belief and knowledge is important to understand when we're together. To me, belief is when we think we understand something in our heads, where knowledge is when we truly understand something in our hearts. What I have come to realize through these God love experiences is that where I once believed I understood God, I now realize that I only thought I understood God, but I didn't really know God love. Now that I have been blessed with moments of truth, I have a knowledge that is undeniable, and I have a desire to share that with you. One final thought. For this, I need you to pay very close attention, because what I have to tell you is really important. It is by far the most important thing that God shared with me. You are a precious child of God. You, my dearly beloved brothers and sisters, know exactly what I'm sharing with you. I realize you may not think that's true at this moment, but I assure you, you do know God as perfectly as I do. In every living thing is the spark of love that God planted there. It is in people, trees, tables, desks, animals, the sky, the water, what we think of as good, what we think of as bad. God love is in everything. You've just misplaced it at the moment. If we stick together over time, we will remember where we placed the God love that is sleeping deep within our hearts. This podcast will be set up as meditations. Each will start with a topic or an idea, and then we will allow the holiness of God love thought to guide us. Therefore, it is best that you listen to these meditations in a quiet place, where you can sit and listen uninterrupted. I do not recommend listening while driving or working out or cleaning around the house. Each will be kept to between 10 and 15 minutes, and then there will be a short musical ending that will allow you to go more deeply into your own awareness and allow God love to grow within you. It is my hope that after some time together, we will experience God love as one and awaken to the oneness of our being. That is what God would like from all of us now. Thank you so much for listening, and if you think of it, please leave a review so other people can find my podcast. And if you know anyone who might be searching for their inner truth, share this loving podcast with them. Perhaps the love of God that has been given me will reach them as well. No matter where you find yourself, or what your circumstances are at this moment, know that you are loved with all of God's love. That, my dear friend, will never change. This podcast was written by me, Mark Laux, with guidance from A Course in Miracles. Thank you for listening. Please review this podcast so other people can find it. Thanks for listening, and know that God loves you unconditionally and without reserve. Ancient Feelings of Peace.